Good morning, indie authors. The title of today's video is Never Fear Making Major Changes to Your Manuscript. Well, now, if you're a first-time writer, or maybe you're just writing your second or third book, that doesn't sound very appealing to you, more than likely. It didn't sound appealing to me when I went through it for the first time. But my advice today centers around why making a major change to your manuscript is critically important sometimes. Maybe you need to change the plot line. Maybe you need to change the timeline. Or maybe it's your primary and your secondary characters. Maybe they haven't had enough struggle. Maybe you haven't challenged them well enough. Or maybe you need to wipe out the entire story and send it in a different direction. Let me give you two quick personal experiences that I have. When I started writing, this was going to be my first book. It's called Principles: How to Build a Principled Business Environment. I had a ledger. I had notes. I had worked on this because I worked for 10 years for the greatest company I believe that ever existed, with the greatest people who ever worked for a company. It was my passion to write this book. What I discovered when I started writing it was I really needed to write this book. My book, my first book, was going to be a long chapter in this book called A Backwards Glance. What I realized was I was not experienced enough to write this book as my first. What I was experienced at was telling stories, real stories, recounting things that I had gone through, people that I respected, people that I had so much fun with, people that I had trauma with, people that I had suffered things with. It was the way for me to write and pour out my true feelings about these subjects. And since I have a really good memory, a memory that comes back in full detail of a lot of strange but interesting subjects, it helped me also to have that and write this book. I was able to also do this. I was able to lay out some of the things that I had struggled with for years. I was able to lay out why, in my own mind, I wasn't as happy as I should be with my great life. I was able to expose the fact that I was a great actor. I wasn't really living this happy life. I was acting like I was happy. So writing my first book, A Backwards Glance, and telling these stories and these personal experiences was a great thing for me personally. When you understand the subject that you should write about, especially in the beginning, you can write it much better. I could not write a business book very well to start as my first book. But as I said, I could write these stories about people I knew and had lived with and had gone through things with really well. By the way, this happens to be my first book, my very best-selling book. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's one of my favorite things in the world to recount writing it, how it went when I wrote it, all the experiences that I went through in that 18-month period to write my very first book, and the joy I felt. And why do I say that? Because if you write your very best book, if you take the time to be disciplined, if you edit and you rewrite, and you do that great work on that book, you will feel the same way about your first book, and maybe all your books, as I do. Now, the second point I wanted to bring up, second example. My very second book is Who Killed Glenna? It's book one in a three-part series called the Sam Bennett series. Now, this character was the ultimate Boy Scout. Handsome, athletic, smart, high morals, great family. He was adored by everyone in his high school because he was a superstar. He needed some challenges, and he got a lot of challenges. His life was thrown upside down by the incident that is related to the title, Who Killed Glenna? how he was falsely accused and exonerated, and how that trauma destroyed a part of him that it took him a long time to get back. How he ran away, joined the military, and was shipped off to Vietnam, and learned that the trauma he had gone through, though bad, was nothing like the trauma that was in front of him. In this book, I had to write the challenges this character was going to face. I had some personal experiences with failing at college football. I was able to relate to some of the experiences he had. I couldn't relate to anyone around me being murdered, but I could relate to some of the personal relationships he went through and some of the slights he felt for not doing well at certain things. I also was able to sit down and do an awful lot of research with people that had been in that experience of Vietnam, and it helped me to understand how to write it better. But as I wrote this book, I was getting near what I thought was the end, and I thought it was a great manuscript to a point. And this book kept telling me something is missing. Well, what I came to conclude in that book's message was that something really was missing. The main character, Sam Bennett, needed to suffer another very personal loss. He needed to suffer the loss of someone very close to him. And somehow that loss was going to not only traumatize him, but put him in a position where he had to come to grips with everything and bring himself back together to survive. That's what the book was about. And this book told me it wasn't right. And I'll tell you why. Because it allowed me to be very honest with myself. It allowed me to just say, I love the book, but I'm not sure. That's a critical thing for a new writer, as well as any writer. I believe you have to listen to what your book is saying to you, because you're the one who's going to be close to it before it's published, before it's written, published, and marketed to your end customers. You've got to be able to hear what that story is saying, not to you specifically, but to your potential customers. And you've got to get yourself in the mindset to make major changes if that's what it's called for. If that book is saying, throw this plot segment away, get rid of this character, kill this character, put this character to a test, or reward this character, that's what you have to do to make that story really come together and be the great story that you wanted to write. It's called adapting to change. You have to be willing to embrace change, because change makes things better much of the time. Not all the time, but there are many things that we change that are changed for the better. Now, I don't believe in just changing for change's sake. I think you have to be very into this book. And if you're an indie writer, you probably are really into the book. Maybe you have this kind of thing that's going through your head right now. Maybe you really are unsure of a direction of your story, or as I said, one of your characters. My best advice is this. Step away from the book for about a week. Just forget about it. Don't write, don't read, just leave it alone. When you come back to that book, be as open-minded as you can. Don't edit. Don't think about writing. Read it. Read your manuscript as close as you can to an outside reader, and be honest with what you're hearing. I don't particularly think you need to make notes. I think you get a feel, because a reader typically is going to be sitting taking notes about what they're reading. They want to read something to be entertained, to be challenged maybe, to be made happy or to be made sad. They want to read for the pleasure of reading. Put your mind in that position and try to read your work. More than likely, your manuscript that you wrote will tell you how to adjust it. Well, today is about change. And as you've noticed, our setting is a little changed today. So As I prepared for this video, I thought, what better way to talk about change in your book than to make a major change in the way we're presenting? I'm going to show you a couple of other things that I do. I think it's always really important as a writer to have your favorite spot. Now, mine isn't here. I've been here this morning doing a little writing before I got ready for this video to start. But my favorite place is just off camera here in a recliner. It's in this room, great lighting, very comfortable, and it's where I really enjoy doing my best writing. The second place is I can escape to my office. I can escape from sounds and sights, and it's more of a closed-in space, and I can get into the writing. And I need that sometimes. But now I want to show you a couple of other places that I use when I need inspiration. I need some different setting. I just need a fresh view to help me write better. So let's go there now. And sometimes that change is just about getting a little fresh air. Maybe just a change of scenery that's in front of you. Or maybe the change you need to make is just simply the location. Getting to a place not to write, but to think about writing. This is where I come. This is where I think. This is where I try to find ways to create inspiration, where I try to measure my motivation and try to get things planned out for whatever project I'm working on. If you look deep enough, you can find your spot too. There it is. Well, hello again, and we are back in the office. I've got a little writing to do this afternoon, and I'm going to take a look at one of my favorite authors and some of the things he did to maybe help me make some changes in a manuscript. As you know, that's what we've been talking about this morning. I hope the video was instructional in some way, helpful maybe. But the lesson that I think that is most important is, please don't have any fear in making those big adjustments to your manuscript, to your plot line, to your characters, whatever you need to change. Just do the change. If it feels like it needs to be altered, dive in there and get it done. That book, that story that you are so well connected to, will help you figure it out. It will talk to you. You just have to listen very closely. The other thing I will tell you is don't forget the part of walking away when you're in a little bit of a struggle and coming back and just reading your manuscript as an outside reader would do. That's really hard because you're going to be very close to it. But try that. Maybe it'll help you. Now, the last thing I'm going to do on this video is something that I have been hesitant to do in the subsequent videos, but I've been asked several times to put in a blooper reel. Well, we're going to do that here at the end. So hang around and watch those if you'd like. But until we get back together next week, I hope you'll have a great week, and I hope you guys will take the time to have some fun with your friends and your family. It'll definitely make your week better. But until we get back together again as indie authors and independent writers, work hard, keep writing, and take care of yourself. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. Good morning, indie authors. The title of today's video is Never Fear Making Major Changes to Your Manuscript. Can you not remember the first line? This is going to be a long day. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, indie authors. Well, you saw the title of today's video. Harsh self-publishing advice. Can you not read and speak? In 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Here we go. Do it right. I don't need these glasses on. I can see better without them. In 3, 2, 1. can't even get. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Let's do it right this time. Good morning, indie authors. I completely forgot the. In 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Good morning, indie authors. Where are the books? Where are the books you're going to talk about? Three, two. Now I've got to sneeze.